He never planned to do it alone, but life had other ideas. After his wife passed away unexpectedly, Daniel's world came crashing down. Left with a newborn baby girl and a heart full of grief, he had no choice but to raise her on his own. Friends drifted away, family offered what little help they could, but it was Daniel who stayed up through the nights, fed her, changed her, and held her through every fever and fear. Over the years, their bond became unbreakable. He worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table and shoes on her feet. He missed sleep, missed chances, and missed out on his own dreams just to give her one. Now, 16 years later, Emma was growing into the kind of person Daniel had always hoped she'd be: kind, smart, and strong. They had weathered everything life threw at them, and finally, things were starting to feel okay. But then, just when Daniel thought the hardest days were behind them, a letter arrived. It had no return address. Just his name on the envelope, written in handwriting he hadn't seen in years. What was inside that envelope would shatter everything he thought he knew. 1 page, a few lines of ink. And suddenly, his past wasn't as buried as he believed. The truth it held would change not only how he saw the life he had built, but everything about who Emma really was. What was written in that letter? Who sent it? And why now, after all these years? The answers would test everything: love, loyalty, and the secrets we keep to protect the people we care about most. Daniel stared at the letter for a long time before opening it. His hands trembled not from fear, but from something deeper, like a part of his past had reached up and grabbed hold of him. He unfolded the paper slowly, almost afraid of what he'd see. The message was short, but it struck him hard. She deserves to know the truth. You can't hide it forever. That was it. No name, no explanation. Just a cruel reminder that some stories don't stay buried. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was some kind of prank. But deep down, Daniel knew. He hadn't always been completely honest, not with Emma, and not with himself. There were things he had locked away, moments from those early days when everything was a blur of grief and survival. He had told Emma. Her mother died in childbirth, and that much was true. But he never shared anything beyond that. He thought shielding her from the past would protect her. Maybe he was wrong. As the days passed, the letter kept creeping back into his mind. He started noticing things: Seema asking more questions lately, becoming curious about her mother, digging through old photo albums. She had found a picture once of a woman standing beside Daniel, laughing in the sun. It wasn't her mother, and she knew it. He had brushed it off quickly, but she didn't forget. Daniel began to wonder if someone else had reached out to her too. Was the letter just the beginning? Was there someone out there who knew more, someone who could append everything? The weight of what he hadn't said now felt heavier than ever. And still, the question hung in the air. What exactly did she deserve to know? Daniel found himself watching Emma more closely now. Every glance, every question she asked seemed to carry more weight. He couldn't tell if she was just being a curious teenager or if she somehow knew something he didn't. One evening, she sat across from him at the kitchen table, holding a photo he hadn't seen in years. It was worn at the edges, like it had been tucked away in a drawer too long. She asked quietly, "Dad, who is this woman?" Her voice wasn't accusing, but it wasn't casual either. Daniel hesitated. He recognized the woman instantly. Her name was Lila, and she had been part of his life during the chaos right after Emma was born. But that chapter was never meant to resurface. He gave a vague answer, something about an old friend from work, and hoped she'd let it go. But Emma didn't. Her eyes stayed on him, like she could tell he wasn't telling the whole story. Meanwhile, Daniel started getting more letters. Always handwritten, always short, and never signed. One of them mentioned a town he hadn't thought about in over a decade, a place tied to a decision he had buried deep. Whoever was sending them knew everything. And now, someone else seemed to be watching them. A black car parked across the street for too long. A call that rang once and hung up. It wasn't just about Emma learning the truth anymore. Someone wanted to force Daniel's hand. At the same time, Emma was digging in her own way. She had recently joined a local genealogy site for a school project, searching through old records and hospital files. She didn't know what she was looking for exactly, but she felt something didn't add up. The more she searched, the more questions she had. Kana, she wasn't the only one asking them. Daniel barely slept anymore. The letters kept coming, one more direct, more personal. The latest one read, "You owe her the truth before someone else does." It was no longer just a threat. It was a countdown. He started looking over his shoulder, checking the locks. Twice, even walking Emma to and from school without telling her why. Something about the way the letters knew his past, new names, dates, even things he thought no one could remember was eating away at him at the same time. Emma was getting closer to something. She hadn't told her dad, but she'd reached out to the hospital where she was born. What she found didn't match the story she'd been told. Her birth certificate was real, but the name listed as her mother wasn't who her dad had said it was. Confused and shaken, she kept her discovery quiet, but it only made her more determined to find out the truth. She even reached out to a woman she found online with a matching last name, Leela. She hadn't gotten a reply yet, but she had a feeling she would soon. Daniel, meanwhile, drove back to the small town the letters had mentioned. It had been over 16 years, but as soon as he saw the old brick building by the corner gas station, everything came rushing back. That's where the choice had been made. That's where the life he built with Emma had really begun in a lie. Or maybe just a half-truth he never thought would catch up to him. That night, as a storm rolled in, Emma received a message from an unknown number. It was just one sentence. "Ask your father about Lila. Ask him what happened the day you were born." Her hands shook as she read it. Upstairs, Daniel stood frozen by the window, watching headlights pull up outside. Emma stared at the message, her heart pounding. She read it again just to be sure, then glanced upstairs toward her dad's room. Everything inside her told her to ask him right away. But something held her back, fear, maybe, or the quiet suspicion that he might not tell her the truth. Downstairs, she heard the faint sound of a car engine cutting off. Someone was outside. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Daniel stood completely still, watching through the curtain as a woman stepped out of the car. Even after all these years, he recognized her instantly. Leela, the woman he never thought he'd see again. The woman whose name he'd buried with the rest of his past. She hadn't changed much. Now the way she walked straight toward the house, like she belonged there, made Daniel's stomach tighten. He didn't know what she wanted after all this time, but if she was here in person, it meant the situation had spiraled far beyond the quiet warnings of letters. Before he could move, there was a knock at the door. Emma came downstairs just in time to hear it. She paused, looking at him. "Dad, who is that?" He couldn't answer. Not yet. His silence said more than words could. When he finally opened the door, Lila looked straight at Emma, not him. "You look just like her," she said quietly. Emma froze. "Who are you?" she asked. "I'm the one your father never wanted you to meet," Lila replied. The room fell into silence. The air felt heavy, like every secret that had been kept for 16 years was pressing in all at once. And then Lila handed over Cynthia. Small folder, worn at the edges. Inside was a photo, a letter, and something Daniel had feared most. Proof, asterisk. Daniel didn't want Emma to see what was inside the folder, but it was too late. She opened it slowly, her eyes scanning each page with growing confusion and disbelief. The photo showed Lila holding a newborn Emma. The letter, dated just days after her birth, was signed by Lila and addressed to Daniel. In it, she pleaded with him not to disappear, not to cut her out of Emma's life. But he had. He had taken Emma and left without a trace, convinced Lila wasn't ready, convinced that raising Emma alone was the only safe choice. Emma looked between them, her voice shaking. "You told me she died." Daniel swallowed hard. "I was protecting you. Things were complicated back then. We both made mistakes." Lila didn't argue. Her expression was calm but tired. "I wasn't perfect, Emma. I was young, scared, but I never stopped looking for you. Your father made sure I couldn't find you." The weight of it all hit Emma at once. Her whole life had been built on a lie, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. The truth hurt, but somewhere in it, she also saw something real. Her father hadn't abandoned her. He'd clung to her, maybe too tightly. And now, everything had changed. But just as emotions swirled and Emma tried to process the truth, Lila dropped the real twist. "There's something else," she said, pulling out a final envelope. "That letter that started all this, it wasn't from me." Daniel looked stunned. "Then who?" Lila hesitated. "Your brother. He knew the truth all along. He was there that night. He helped you leave, and now he wants Emma to know what really happened at the hospital." Emma's breath caught. "What do you mean, really happened?" Lila looked her in the eyes. "Because the woman you thought was your mother wasn't." For a long moment, no one said a word. Emma felt like the ground had shifted beneath her. Her father sat down, burying his face in his hands. Lila moved slowly, placing the final piece of the puzzle on the tabula birth record, stamped and signed. It revealed what Daniel had tried to keep hidden all these years. Emma's birth mother wasn't Lila either. It was another woman, Daniel's former partner, someone he'd been involved with briefly before reconnecting with Lila. She had chosen to give Emma up after birth, overwhelmed and unable to cope. Lila had offered to raise her, but Daniel had taken the baby and left them both behind, afraid that Emma would grow up caught between unstable choices. The truth hit Daniel hard. He had convinced himself that he was saving Emma, and in many ways, he had. He gave her love, a home, and a life where she never felt unwanted. But he also took away her right to know where she came from. Emma sat beside him now, holding his hand. Her voice was soft. "You did your best. I see that now. But I need time, and I want to know the rest." In the days that followed, Daniel opened up completely. Lila stayed for a while, answering Emma's questions and slowly rebuilding a connection. The man who had sent the letters, Daniel's estranged brother, reached out again, but his actions forced a truth into the light that could no longer be ignored. Emma eventually met her birth mother, under her own terms. The meeting was emotional, complicated, but healing in ways none of them expected. In the end, Emma didn't choose one version of family over another. She embraced them, all the pain, the truth, and the love that had always been there, even in silence. ****